The papers were scattered across Aunt Linda's mahogany desk like confetti from a celebration nobody remembered having. I sat cross-legged on the Persian rug, sorting through scholarship applications for the Bright Futures Foundation's annual awards ceremony. The house buzzed with family voices from the kitchen, my brother Mason arguing about college basketball with our cousins, Linda's laughter ringing above it all like wind chimes. "Just organize them by date, sweetie," Linda had said, pressing a cup of hot chocolate into my hands before disappearing back to her guests. "You're so good with details." Details. That's what got me into trouble. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The first discrepancy was small. A scholarship listed for $2,500 to someone named Marcus Chen. But when I cross-referenced it with the recipient list from last year, the amount showed as $1,800. I pulled out my phone and searched Facebook for Marcus Chen plus our city name. Nothing. Tried Instagram. Still nothing. My stomach started that slow churn you get when you realize the ground beneath you isn't as solid as you thought. I kept sorting. Found another, $3,000 to Sarah Williams. But Sarah Williams had graduated from my high school 2 years ago, and I remembered her crying in the guidance counselor's office because she couldn't afford college. She'd joined the Army instead. Yet here was her name, with a scholarship dated 6 months after she'd shipped out to basic training. The chocolate was getting cold in my hands. Outside, snow began to fall against the windows, and someone had put on Christmas music. Bing Crosby crooned about white Christmases while I stared at papers that were starting to look less like hope and more like lies. Finding everything okay, Tyler appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame with that easy smile that made teachers forgive late assignments and got him out of speeding tickets. My cousin was golden in all the ways that mattered to adults. Captain of the debate team, pre-law student, Linda's pride and joy. "Yeah," I said, but my voice came out smaller than I meant to. "Just some of these names don't match up." Tyler walked over and crouched beside me, his expensive cologne mixing with the smell of wood polish and old books. "Match up how?" I showed him the Marcus Chen application. I can't find this person anywhere. And this one," I held up Sarah Williams' paperwork, "she's been in the Army for 2 years. Tyler's smile flickered, just for a second, like a light bulb about to burn out. "Mom probably made mistakes with the dates. She's been so busy lately." But I was already pulling out more applications, spreading them across the rug like tarot cards revealing an ugly future. 5 fake names, 7 inflated amounts, administrative costs that jumped from $500 to $3,000 between identical line items. "Tyler." My voice was steadier now, carrying the weight of numbers that didn't lie even when people did. "Where's this money going?" Tyler stood up, brushing imaginary dust off his khakis. "You're overthinking it, Zoe. Mom helps a lot of families. Sometimes the paperwork gets mixed up." I thought about my own scholarship from 3 years ago, the one that let me go to college after Dad died when the insurance money ran out and Mom was working double shifts just to keep the lights on. I remembered Linda hugging me at the awards ceremony, tears in her eyes as she talked about helping kids like me reach their dreams. "This isn't mixed-up paperwork." I held up a bank statement that had been mixed in with the applications. "This is systematic. Look at these transfers." Tyler's hand shot out and grabbed the statement from me. "That's private." The room went quiet except for Dean Martin singing about baby it being cold outside. Tyler was still smiling, but his eyes had gone flat. I'd seen that look before, years ago, when he'd broken Mason's PlayStation controller and convinced everyone that Mason had done it himself. "How much?" I asked. "How much? What how much? How much have you stolen?" The smile died completely. Tyler sat down heavily in Linda's chair, running his hands through his perfectly styled hair. For a moment, he looked younger than 19, scared. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." "I needed—" He stopped, started again. "There were some debts. Poker games at school. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed. My chest felt tight. How much, Tyler? 43,000. The words came out in a whisper. Maybe 45. I stared at him. $43,000 that could have sent kids to college. Kids like Ethan Walker, who had to drop out of the art program because his scholarship never came through. Kids like me 3 years ago, desperate and grieving and clinging to the hope that someone somewhere gave a damn about poor kids with dead fathers and big dreams. You have to tell your mom. Are you insane? Tyler stood up so fast the chair spun. Do you know what this would do to her? To me? I'm applying to law schools. I have internships lined up. This would destroy everything. Good. The word hung between us like a challenge. Tyler's face went through several expressions, shock, hurt, anger, before settling on something I'd never seen from him before. Something dangerous. You don't understand, he said, his voice low and careful. This isn't just about me. This affects the whole family. Mom's reputation, the foundation's work, your scholarship. My scholarship was real. Was it? He leaned forward, and I caught a whiff of something sharp and desperate beneath the cologne. How do you know? How do you know any of them were real? How do you know Mom didn't just shuffle money around to make you feel special? The accusation hit like a slap. I thought about my application essay, the hours I'd spent perfecting it, the hope that had carried me through the darkest months after Dad's death, the possibility that it had all been charity, pity wrapped in false merit, made my stomach twist. You're lying. Am I? Or are you just another Marcus Chen, another Sarah Williams, another name on a piece of paper that makes my mother feel good about herself? I started gathering the applications, stacking them with shaking hands. I'm telling her. No. Tyler moved to block the door. You're not. Those kids needed that money. Real kids with real problems. And I have real problems too. Do you think this is easy? Do you think I wanted this? I think you're a thief. And I think you're a naive little girl who doesn't understand how the world works. The Christmas music had stopped. Voices still drifted from the kitchen, but they seemed far away, like they were coming from another house, another life where families gathered to celebrate instead of watching their foundations crumble. I stood up, clutching the papers to my chest. Get out of my way. Zoe. Tyler's voice had gone soft again, pleading. We can fix this. I can pay it back. We don't need to involve anyone else. How? With more stolen money? I'll figure it out. Just give me time. I looked at my cousin, really looked at him. The expensive clothes, the perfect hair, the desperate eyes of someone who'd been running from consequences for so long he'd forgotten what truth felt like. No. I pushed past him toward the door. He grabbed my arm, not hard, but firm enough to stop me. Zoe, please, this will ruin me. I pulled free and turned to face him one last time. You already did that yourself. The garage was cold and smelled like motor oil and Christmas ornaments waiting to be hung. Tyler had followed me out here after I'd grabbed my phone from the kitchen, muttering something about needing air. The family was still inside, their laughter and conversation a warm bubble I could no longer reach. You can't make that call, Tyler said, closing the garage door behind us. The sound echoed in the space like a coffin lid dropping. I held up my phone, Detective Murphy's number already pulled up from when he'd spoken to our college about campus safety. Watch me. Zoe, think about this. Really think. What happens when the police show up? When reporters start calling? When Mom loses everything she's worked for? Maybe she should have thought about that before letting you steal from kids. You think she knows? Jesus, Zoe, you think she's sitting in there planning how to spend blood money? She doesn't know anything. Then she'll thank me for telling her. She'll hate you for destroying her life. I started to dial, but Tyler moved closer, his hand hovering near my phone. Those kids you're so worried about,
Half of them wouldn't have gotten anything anyway. I just redirected funds that were already earmarked for administrative costs. Bullshit. It's not. It's operating expenses. $43,000 in operating expenses for a local scholarship program? I shook my head. I'm not stupid, Tyler. Dad might not have been able to afford college for us, but he taught me math. Tyler's face crumpled. For a second, he looked like the little boy who used to cry when his mom worked late and left him with babysitters. That's not fair. Fair? The word came out louder than I meant it. Fair is kids getting the scholarships they earned. Fair is your mom not being humiliated when this comes out. Fair is not having to choose between protecting a thief and protecting innocent people. I'm not a thief. Then what are you? He didn't answer. Just stood there in his $200 sweater, surrounded by boxes of Christmas decorations that Linda bought new every year because she could afford to, while kids across town made ornaments out of construction paper and hope. I pressed the call button. Tyler moved faster than I expected. His hand shot out and knocked my phone from my grip, sending it skittering across the concrete floor. I lunged for it, but he grabbed my wrist. "Don't make me the villain here," he said. "I'm trying to protect everyone." By stealing from children? By fixing my mistakes quietly? Do you know what happens if this gets out? Mom loses the foundation, I get kicked out of school, you and Mason lose your scholarships too, because they'll audit everything. Everyone loses.
I tried to pull away, but Tyler held on. "Let go of me. Promise me you won't call. Let go. Promise me, Zoe." I looked into his eyes and saw something that made my skin crawl. Not guilt or shame or even fear. Calculation. He was measuring me, weighing how much trouble I was worth, how far he'd have to go to keep me quiet. No. I yanked my arm hard enough to break free and dove for my phone. Tyler moved to block me, and I felt something shift in the air between us. The pretense dropped. The cousin who'd taught me card tricks and driven me to school when Mom was working wasn't in the garage anymore. In his place was someone desperate and dangerous and used to getting his way. "You always were a self-righteous little bitch," he said, and the casual cruelty in his voice made me freeze. I had my phone in my hand. Tyler stood between me and the door, his shoulders squared like he was getting ready for a fight. "I'm not the one who stole from kids," I said, "and I'm not the one who's about to destroy a family over money that's already gone. It's not about the money. It's about, what, justice? Doing the right thing?" Tyler's laugh was ugly. "You want to know what the right thing is? The right thing is keeping your mouth shut and letting me fix this. But you can't do that, can you? You have to be the hero." I started backing toward the side door, but Tyler moved to cut me off. "I'm not trying to be a hero." "No? Then what's this about? Making yourself feel important? Getting revenge because I called your scholarship into question?" "It's about protecting other kids. It's about you being a tattletale little girl who never learned when to mind her own business." The words stung because there was just enough truth in them to hurt. I had always been the one who noticed things, who spoke up when something wasn't right. Teachers called it integrity. Kids called it snitching. "Move." "No." We stared at each other across the garage, and I realized I was scared, not just of Tyler, but of the choice I was making. He was right about one thing. This would change everything. Linda would be devastated, the foundation would be destroyed, our family might never recover. But I thought about Ethan Walker again, about the art portfolio he had to abandon because the scholarship never came through, about all the kids whose names were on fake applications, who'd sent in essays and transcripts and hope only to have their futures stolen by someone who already had everything. This isn't just about you and me," I said. "There are other victims." "There won't be any more victims. I'm done. No more transfers, no more—"
You're done because you got caught, not because you grew a conscience. Tyler's face went red. Shut up! How many other kids like me are out there? Kids who think they earned something when really they just got lucky because you hadn't figured out how to steal their money yet. I said shut up. How many Ethans had to give up their dreams because... Tyler grabbed a picture frame from a nearby shelf, one of those heavy wooden ones with a family photo from last Christmas, all of us smiling like we actually liked each other. He raised it above his head, and for a split second, I thought he was going to throw it at the wall. Instead, he brought it down toward my arm. I tried to dodge, but the garage was cluttered with boxes and lawn equipment. The corner of the frame caught my forearm with a crack that I felt in my bones. Pain exploded up my arm and into my shoulder, white hot and immediate. I fell backward over a box of ornaments, glass balls scattering across the floor like broken promises. My arm was on fire, twisted at an angle that arms weren't supposed to twist. Tyler dropped the picture frame. It landed face down, glass spider webbing across the concrete. Shit. I tried to get up, but moving sent fresh waves of agony through my arm. I could hear voices from inside the house, footsteps approaching. Zoe? Mason's voice. You okay out there? Tyler looked at me, then at the door, then back at me. I saw him making another calculation, weighing his options. Tell them you fell, he said quietly. Tell them it was an accident. I stared at him, cradling my arm against my chest. My cousin, my family, the boy who had helped me build blanket forts and taught me how to change a tire. Please, he said, and for a moment he sounded like Tyler again. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... Please, Zoe, just tell them you fell. The garage door opened, and Mason stepped in with two of our other cousins behind him. Jesus Christ! Mason said, rushing to my side. What happened? I looked up at Tyler, who was already arranging his face into an expression of shocked and concern, and I made a choice that would change everything. Tyler hit me, I said, with the picture frame. He broke my arm. The first thing Aunt Linda did was send Tyler to his room like he was 10 years old instead of a 19-year-old who just assaulted his cousin. The second thing she did was kneel beside me with a bag of frozen peas and start talking. Oh, honey, you're in shock, she said, her voice syrupy with false calm. You must have hit your head when you fell. Tyler would never... I didn't fall. My arm was throbbing in time with my heartbeat, and every breath sent fresh spikes of pain through my shoulder.
Sweetie, no. Linda arranged the frozen peas around my arm with practiced efficiency, like she'd done this before. You tripped over those boxes. We all heard the crash. Mason was standing behind her, his face white. Zoe said, Zoe is hurt and confused, Linda said firmly. Accidents happen when people don't watch where they're going. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. I tried to sit up straighter, but movement made everything worse. Linda, stop. I know what happened. Tyler hit me because I found out about the money. The garage went quiet. Our other cousins exchanged glances, the kind of looks family members give each other when they realize they've walked into something bigger and messier than they bargained for. What money? Mason asked. Linda's hands stilled on the ice pack. There's no money situation. Tyler is under a lot of stress with school, but he stole $43,000 from the scholarship fund, I said, to pay gambling debts. That's enough. Linda's voice cracked like a whip. You're obviously more hurt than we thought. We need to get you to the hospital. Good, then I can tell the doctors how this really happened. Linda's face went through several expressions before settling on something that looked like maternal concern, but felt like a threat. Honey, you're not thinking clearly. When people are in pain, sometimes they say things they don't mean, things that could hurt the people they love. She stood up and started gathering our cousins with her eyes, silently directing them toward the door.
Why don't you all go back inside? I'll take care of Zoe. I'm staying. Actually, I think it would be better if I'm staying with my sister. Linda looked like she wanted to argue, but thought better of it. Our cousins filed out, leaving whispered conversations and uncomfortable glances in their wake. In 5 minutes, the whole family would know that something had happened, but they'd only know Linda's version. When the door closed, Linda sat down on an overturned crate beside me. Up close, I could see the foundation makeup caked around her eyes, trying to hide the stress lines that had been deepening over the past few months. "Zoe," she said softly, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. I need you to call the police. That's not going to happen." "Linda, do you know what Tyler is facing right now? His senior year, law school applications, internships that could set up his entire career. One phone call, one false accusation, and all of that disappears. It's not false. Even if it were true, and I'm not saying it is, but even if Tyler made some mistakes with the foundation's finances, destroying his future won't help anyone." I stared at her. Mistakes? Young people make poor decisions sometimes, especially when they're under pressure. He stole money from kids. He's barely more than a child himself. Mason made it sound like he was choking. "Are you serious right now? Zoe's sitting here with a broken arm?" "From an accident," Linda said firmly. "A terrible accident that happened when she tripped over boxes in a cluttered garage. I was there when she said Tyler hit her. She was in shock. Pain makes people confused." I watched Linda rewrite reality in real time, her voice never wavering, her story becoming more solid with each repetition. This wasn't her first time doing damage control for Tyler. "How long?" I asked. "How long what? How long have you been covering for him?" Linda's facade cracked just enough for me to see something raw underneath. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do. This isn't the first time Tyler has hurt someone, or stolen something, or gotten into trouble that you had to fix. Tyler is a good boy who sometimes... Tyler is 19 years old, and he just broke my arm because I caught him stealing. Good boys don't do that." Linda was quiet for a long moment, adjusting the ice pack with hands that weren't quite steady. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "You don't understand what it's like. Being a single mother, trying to raise a son, watching him struggle with things that other kids seem to handle so easily. Tyler has always been sensitive, intense. He feels things more deeply than other people. Sensitive people don't steal from kids. He made a mistake. A $43,000 mistake. Money can be replaced." I looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman who'd hugged me at my scholarship ceremony, who'd sent flowers when Dad died, who'd spent 15 years building a foundation to help kids like me. "Can dreams be replaced?" I asked. "Can the kids who didn't get to go to college get those years back? Can Ethan Walker get his art career back?" Linda flinched at Ethan's name. She knew exactly who he was, which meant she knew exactly what Tyler had taken from him. "We can make this right," she said quietly, without involving anyone else, without ruining Tyler's future. "What about those kids' futures?" "I'll find a way to help them, set up new scholarships, reach out to other organizations." "With what money? Tyler stole from the foundation. How much is left?" Linda didn't answer, which was answer enough. Mason knelt down beside me. "Zoe, we need to get you to a hospital." Your arm looks bad," Linda agreed quickly. "We should go, right now." I could see the calculation in her eyes. Get me to the hospital while I was still in pain and shock, control the narrative, make sure I was too confused and medicated to tell anyone what really happened. "I want to call my mom first."
"Your mother is working the double shift. We shouldn't worry her. She needs to know that you're okay and that you had an accident. That's all." Linda stood up and dusted off her hands. "Mason, help me get your sister to my car. We'll go to St. Mary's. They have excellent emergency care." Mason looked between us, clearly torn. "Zoe, what do you want to do?" I want to tell the truth, I thought. I want Tyler to face consequences. I want those kids to get justice. But Linda was right about one thing. I was in pain, and thinking clearly was getting harder by the minute. My arm felt like it was full of broken glass, and the shock was starting to wear off, leaving exhaustion in its wake. "Hospital," I said finally, "but I'm not lying for him." Linda's smile was sharp and sad. "We'll see how you feel once the pain medication kicks in." She helped Mason get me to my feet, supporting my good side while I cradled my broken arm against my chest. As we walked toward her car, Linda kept talking in a low, soothing voice. "Accidents happen all the time in garages. All those boxes, all that clutter. It's easy to trip, easy to fall against something sharp. The doctors will understand. These things happen." "Stop," I said. "Sometimes when we're upset, we look for someone to blame. It's natural to want the pain to be someone's fault. Stop!" But the truth is, sometimes bad things just happen. Sometimes there's no villain, no one to punish. Sometimes we just have to focus on healing and moving forward. I stopped walking. "Linda, if you don't stop talking, I'm going to scream." She fell silent, but I could feel her tension radiating like heat. This wasn't over. The hospital was just the next battlefield, and Linda was already planning her strategy. As we reached her car, I caught a glimpse of Tyler watching from his bedroom window. Our eyes met for just a second before he stepped back into the shadows. He looked scared. Good, I thought. He should be. But as Linda helped me into the passenger seat and started coaching me on what to tell the doctors, I realized that being right and being believed were two very different things, and I was about to find out which one mattered more. Linda talked the entire drive to St. Mary's. Her voice was white noise, a steady stream of instructions disguised as comfort. "Remember, accidents happen. You were helping me organize holiday decorations, got excited about something, maybe moved too fast. Those boxes have been stacked there for weeks. Anyone could have tripped." I pressed my forehead against the cold window and watched streetlights blur past. The medication she'd given me from her purse was making everything soft around the edges, but not soft enough to dull the sharp clarity of what Tyler had done. "Are you listening, Zoe?" "I'm listening." "Good, because this isn't just about tonight. This is about Tyler's future, the foundation's reputation, your family standing in the community. One careless word, and what? Tyler faces consequences for his actions?" Linda's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Tyler made mistakes, but destroying his life won't undo them." The emergency room was bright and efficient, all antiseptic smells and squeaking sneakers on linoleum. Linda hovered while I filled out forms with my good hand, her presence like a shadow I couldn't shake. "Just the basics," she murmured. "Fallen garage, struck arm on picture frame." The triage nurse was young, maybe a year older than me, with tired eyes and purple scrubs. She took my vitals and asked the standard questions about pain levels and allergies. Linda answered most of them for me. "She's had some ibuprofen," she said when the nurse asked about medication. "For the pain." The nurse looked at me. "How did this happen?" I opened my mouth, but Linda was faster. "Accident in the garage. She was helping me organize holiday decorations, tripped over some boxes. You know how cluttered those spaces get." "I see." She made notes without looking up. "And you are?" "Her aunt, Linda Brooks. I'm her emergency contact while her mother's at work." That was news to me, but I was too tired to argue. The medication was making my thoughts feel like cotton. We waited. Linda kept talking, a constant stream of coaching disguised as small talk, how the foundation kept her so busy, how accidents happen when people try to do too much too fast, how important it was to focus on healing rather than assigning blame. "Zoe Collins." The voice belonged to a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and no-nonsense scrubs. She had the kind of eyes that had seen everything and weren't impressed by much of it. "I'm Diana Fletcher. I'll be taking care of you tonight." Linda started to follow us back, but Diana held up a hand. "Family can wait here. This won't take long." The examination room was small and bright. Diana helped me onto the table and began cutting away the makeshift splint Linda had constructed from dish towels and medical tape. "That's quite a break," she said, examining my arm with gentle fingers. "Can you tell me how this happened?" The rehearsed story sat on my tongue like a lie I couldn't swallow. "I fell." "Fell how?" "Tripped over boxes. Hit my arm on a picture frame." Diana nodded, but her fingers were exploring the break with professional precision. "This impact pattern is interesting. Usually when someone falls and strikes their arm, we see different fracture lines. This looks more like a direct blow from above." My heart started beating faster. "I don't really remember the details. It happened fast." "I'm sure it did." Diana positioned my arm for x-rays, her movements careful and practiced. "Your aunt seems very concerned about you."
She's protective. Diana stepped behind the X-ray shield. "Hold still for me." The machine hummed and clicked. Through the small window, I could see Linda pacing in the waiting room, her phone pressed to her ear. Probably calling lawyers, I thought, or coaching Tyler on his story. "Can I ask you something?" Diana said when she came back around. "Are you safe at home?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, when you leave here tonight, are you going somewhere safe?" I stared at her. Diana's expression was neutral, professional, but there was something in her eyes that reminded me of Mason when he got protective. Steady, unmovable. "Why would you ask that?" "Because in 15 years of emergency medicine, I've seen a lot of accidents. And this," she gestured to my arm, "doesn't look like someone who tripped over boxes." The words hung between us, like a bridge I could either cross or burn. Outside, Linda was gesturing emphatically to whoever she was talking to, her voice rising despite the glass between us. "My aunt says." "I'm not asking what your aunt says. I'm asking what you say." Diana pulled up a chair and sat down so we were eye level. "Zoe, I've been doing this long enough to know when someone's been hurt intentionally. The angle of the break, the defensive position of your other arm, the way you keep looking toward the waiting room like you're afraid of what might happen if you say the wrong thing." My throat felt tight. "You don't understand. It's complicated." "It always is. But complicated doesn't mean wrong. Complicated doesn't mean you deserved it." "I didn't say I deserved it." "Didn't you?" Diana's voice was gentle but unrelenting. "Because in my experience, people who've been hurt by family members spend a lot of time explaining why it's their fault, why they shouldn't have pushed so hard or asked so many questions or threatened to do something the abuser didn't want them to do." I felt tears starting and hated myself for it. "He didn't mean to break my arm. He was just trying to stop me from—" "From what?" "From making a mistake." Diana was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. "This is Detective James Murphy. He specializes in family violence cases. Good man, very thorough, very discreet." "I can't." "You don't have to do anything right now, but I want you to know that you have options. And I want you to know that whatever happened in that garage, it wasn't your fault." Through the window, I could see Linda hanging up her phone and looking toward our room with barely concealed impatience. "She's going to ask what we talked about," I said. "And you're going to tell her I asked about your pain levels and discussed your treatment plan, which is exactly what I'm about to do." Diana stood up and checked the X-ray results on her computer. "The break is clean, which is good news. We'll put you in a cast and set up follow-up appointments. You'll need to take it easy for 6 to 8 weeks." "That's all?" "That's all I can do medically." She paused at the door. "But Zoe, that card I gave you, Detective Murphy's number is on there." but so is mine. If you decide you want to talk about what really happened tonight, call me. Anytime. The door opened and Linda rushed in, all concern and maternal energy. How is she? What did the x-ray show? Will she need surgery? Diana's demeanor shifted back to professional neutrality. Clean break, no surgery needed. We'll get her casted and she'll be good to go. Thank goodness. You hear such horror stories about emergency room visits. Indeed. Diana's eyes found mine one more time. Remember what we discussed about follow-up care, Zoe. It's important to ignore warning signs. I nodded, the business card burning like a secret in my pocket. The cast was heavy and white and made everything awkward. Linda drove me home with the radio playing softly, Christmas songs that felt obscene after everything that had happened. She was calmer now, her crisis management mode shifting into what I recognized as damage control maintenance. The doctor seemed nice, she said as we pulled into our driveway. She was. What did you two talk about while I was making phone calls? Pain management, follow-up appointments. Good. It's important to focus on healing. Mason met us at the door, his face tight with worry. How bad is it? 6 to 8 weeks in a cast, Linda answered before I could speak. But she'll be fine. Kids her age heal quickly. I watched her say it, watched her appropriate my injury and make it smaller, more manageable. Just another family story that would get smoothed down and simplified until it became something everyone could live with. I should call Mom, I said. I already did, Linda replied quickly. Told her you had a little accident, but that you're perfectly fine. No need to worry her while she's working. Of course she had. Linda was already 3 steps ahead, controlling the narrative before I could contaminate it with truth. I'm tired, I said. Of course you are. Trauma is exhausting. Mason, help your sister to bed. Mason walked me to my room, his questions careful and quiet. What really happened in that garage? I sat down on my bed and stared at the cast. Tyler hit me. I know that. I mean with the money thing you mentioned. He's been stealing from the scholarship fund. Tens of thousands of dollars. Mason's face went through several expressions. Jesus. Are you sure? I saw the paperwork. Fake names, inflated amounts, missing funds. He admitted it.
And that's why he hit me, because I was going to turn him in. Mason sat down heavily in my desk chair. Fuck. Linda wants me to say it was an accident, that I tripped and fell. Did you? I looked at my brother, really looked at him. Mason had always been the one to stand up for me when kids at school were cruel about our secondhand clothes or Dad's drinking. He'd gotten suspended in 9th grade for punching a boy who called me trailer trash. No, I said, I didn't fall. Mason nodded once, sharp and decisive. Then we call the police. Linda will... I don't give a shit what Linda will do. Someone broke your arm. Someone stole money from kids who needed it. That's not a family matter, Zoe. That's criminal. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Zoe Collins? This is Detective James Murphy. Nurse Fletcher asked me to give you a call. I looked at my brother, whose eyebrows shot up. Yes, hi. I understand you were in the emergency room tonight with an arm injury. Nurse Fletcher has some concerns about how that injury occurred. Linda's voice drifted up from downstairs, talking to someone on the phone. Probably Tyler, strategizing. I can't really talk right now, I said. I understand. Are you in a safe place? I'm at home with my brother. Good, Miss Collins.
I'd like to meet with you tomorrow to discuss what happened tonight. Would that be possible? I thought about Linda's coaching, about Tyler's desperate eyes, about Ethan Walker's lost scholarship, and all the other kids whose dreams had been sold to pay gambling debts. Yes, I said. That would be possible. Excellent. How about tomorrow morning at 10? There's a coffee shop called Brew Haven on 5th Street. Do you know it? I know it. I'll be there. And Miss Collins, bring someone you trust if it makes you more comfortable. After I hung up, Mason and I sat in silence for a long moment. You're really gonna do this? He said finally. I have to. Linda's gonna lose her mind. Linda should have thought about that before she raised a thief. Mason smiled grimly. Dad would be proud of you. Dad would be furious that his little brother's family turned out to be criminals. Dad would be proud that his daughter chose to do the right thing even when it was hard. Downstairs, Linda's voice was getting louder. I caught fragments. Has to understand the consequences and can't let one mistake. She's talking to Tyler. Want me to go listen? No. I don't want to know what they're planning. I just want to tell the truth and let someone else figure out what to do with it. But sleep didn't come easy that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my arm throbbing despite the pain medication, and thought about all the ways this could go wrong. Tyler could claim I was lying. Linda could pressure other family members to take their side. The foundation could collapse and take legitimate scholarships with it. But every time I started to second-guess myself, I thought about Detective Murphy's voice on the phone, steady and professional, and completely unlike the family voices that had spent the evening trying to convince me that violence was an accident and theft was a mistake. At 3 a.m, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is going to ruin more than just Tyler. Think about what you're doing. L. I deleted it without responding and turned off my phone. Brewhaven was warm and crowded with the usual Tuesday morning mix of college students and business people getting their caffeine fixes. Detective Murphy was easy to spot, mid-30s, patient eyes, wearing a coat that had seen better winters. He stood up when Mason and I walked in. Miss Collins, I'm James Murphy. His handshake was firm but not aggressive, and he waited for us to sit before he started talking. I want you to know that this conversation is informal. You're not under any obligation to talk to me, and you can leave at any time. I'm here because Diana Fletcher is concerned about you, and because some things you mentioned last night suggest there might be more going on than a simple accident. Mason had insisted on coming, despite my protests that I could handle it alone. Now I was grateful for his presence, solid and protective beside me. Before we start, Detective Murphy continued, I want to be clear about something. If you tell me that someone hurt you intentionally, I'm going to investigate. That's my job. So if you're not ready for that, now's the time to say so. I looked around the coffee shop at all the normal people living normal lives, problems no bigger than midterm exams and job interviews. I'm ready. Murphy pulled out a small recorder and set it on the table. Do you mind if I record this? It helps me keep the details straight. I nodded, and he pressed a button. Tuesday, December 15th, 10:15 a.m. Detective James Murphy speaking with Zoe Collins regarding injuries sustained Monday evening. Miss Collins, can you tell me in your own words what happened last night? So I did. I told him about finding the scholarship discrepancies, about confronting Tyler, and the attack in the garage. I told him about Linda's coaching and the hospital visit and the pressure to lie. Murphy listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes in a small notebook. When he finished, he was quiet for a long moment.
This scholarship fraud you mentioned, how much money are we talking about? Tyler said 43,000, maybe 45. Murphy's eyebrows went up. That's felony territory. Does that matter? I mean, for the assault case? It matters because it establishes motive. It shows this wasn't just a family argument that got out of hand. This was someone using violence to cover up a crime. Mason leaned forward. What happens next? Next, I do my job. I investigate the assault, and I bring in financial crimes detectives to look at the Foundation's books. Miss Collins, I'll need you to make a formal statement, and we'll probably need you to testify if this goes to trial. What about Tyler? What about him? What happens to him? Murphy studied my face. Are you asking because you're worried about him? I'm asking because I need to know what I'm setting in motion. If the evidence supports it, Tyler will be arrested and charged with assault and fraud. He'll have a chance to defend himself in court. If he's convicted, he'll face jail time and restitution payments. The finality of it hit me like cold water. Tyler in handcuffs, Linda watching her son get led away, our family shattered. I know this is hard, Murphy said gently, but Miss Collins, this isn't your fault. Tyler made choices, Linda made choices. You're just refusing to be complicit in covering them up. By the time we got home, news was spreading. My phone had 6 missed calls from relatives I barely talked to, and Linda's car was in our driveway. She was sitting at our kitchen table with Mom, who had apparently left work early. Linda's eyes were red and her hands shook slightly as she lifted her coffee cup. Zoe, Mom said when we walked in, Linda tells me you're confused about what happened last night. I'm not confused. Honey, you have a head injury. I don't have a head injury. I have a broken arm because Tyler hit me with a picture frame. Linda flinched. Sweetie, you're still in shock. Stop calling me sweetie. Stop acting like you care about me. You care about Tyler, and you care about your reputation, and that's it. That's not true. Then why didn't you call the police when you found me bleeding in your garage? Because Tyler didn't what? Didn't mean to break my arm? Didn't mean to steal from kids? When does Tyler start meaning the things he does? Mom looked between us, confused and increasingly alarmed. Someone needs to explain to me what's happening here. So I did. I told her about the fraud, about the attack, about Linda's pressure campaign. I watched Mom's face change as the story unfolded, watched her realize that her sister-in-law had chosen protecting a criminal over protecting her daughter. $43,000? Mom said finally. Give or take, I confirmed. Mom turned to Linda. Is this true? There may have been some irregularities in the books. Is it true, Linda? Linda's composure finally cracked. He's my son. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to call the police when he broke your niece's arm. And destroy his life? Destroy everything I've worked for? He destroyed it himself. By evening, the phone was ringing constantly. Word had gotten out, somehow, maybe through the hospital, maybe through family gossip, maybe through Detective Murphy's investigation. People wanted to know if it was true, if the Bright Futures Foundation had really been stealing from scholarship recipients. Some of the calls were supportive. Mrs. Mitchell from down the street brought over a casserole and told me I was brave. Mason's girlfriend sent flowers. But some of the calls were angry. Relatives who thought I was destroying the family. Community members who donated to the foundation and felt betrayed. Tyler's friends from college who insisted he would never do such a thing. The call that mattered came at 9:30 p.m. Zoe, this is Ethan Walker. I recognized the name immediately from the scholarship applications. Ethan, hi.
I saw the news about the foundation. Is it true? It's true. I was supposed to get a scholarship 3 years ago for art school. It never came through, and they said there had been a clerical error, that I should reapply next year. I'm sorry. I'm not calling for an apology. I'm calling to say thank you. For what? For speaking up. For not letting them cover it up. There are probably other kids like me. Kids who gave up on their dreams because they thought they just weren't good enough. After we hung up, I sat in my room and thought about Ethan's lost art career, about all the other dreams that had been sacrificed to pay Tyler's gambling debts. Linda was wrong about one thing. This wasn't going to destroy everything she had worked for. This was going to save it. The courtroom smelled like old wood and broken promises. I sat in the witness section wearing a navy blazer borrowed from Sophie Rivera, my victim advocate, and my father's watch on my good wrist. Tyler sat across the aisle in a pressed suit, clean-shaven, and looking like the model student Linda had always claimed he was. She sat beside him, makeup perfect, wearing pearls like this was Sunday service instead of a reckoning. The state calls Zoe Collins to the stand. My legs felt unsteady as I walked to the witness box. The cast made everything awkward, a white reminder of why we were all here. I placed my good hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Tyler's lawyer had already painted me as an unstable young woman seeking attention, someone who fabricated stories to feel important. He had brought up my father's death, suggested trauma had made me prone to fantasy and exaggeration.
Linda had testified earlier, her voice breaking as she described Tyler as a sensitive boy under academic pressure. She'd called the scholarship discrepancies bookkeeping errors and my injuries a tragic accident that Zoe has misremembered due to shock. Now it was my turn. "Miss Collins," the prosecutor said gently, "can you tell the court what happened on the evening of December 14th? So I did. I told them about finding the falsified records, about confronting Tyler, about the moment he chose violence over accountability. I described the sound of bone breaking, the way Tyler looked at me afterward, not with horror or regret, but with calculation. Your Honor," Tyler's lawyer interrupted during cross-examination, "my client's academic records show no history of violence." "Objection," the prosecutor said. "Academic records don't document family violence that's been systematically covered up." Judge Hayes sustained the objection. She was a small woman with steel in her voice, someone who'd spent decades protecting vulnerable people from those who claimed to love them. The financial evidence was overwhelming. Detective Murphy and the fraud investigators had traced every stolen dollar, every fake recipient, every inflated administrative cost. $47,000 stolen over 2 years. Money that should have sent kids to college spent instead on Tyler's gambling debts and expensive lifestyle. "Miss Collins," Tyler's lawyer said during cross-examination, "isn't it true that you harbor resentment toward my client because of your father's death and your family's financial struggles?" "No." "Isn't it true that you fabricated these allegations because you were jealous of Tyler's opportunities?" I looked at Tyler, sitting there in his expensive suit, surrounded by lawyers his mother had hired to protect him from consequences. "I don't want Tyler's opportunities," I said. "I want him to stop stealing opportunities from other people." The courtroom was quiet. Tyler stared at his hands. No further questions. Judge Hayes didn't make us wait. 3 days after closing arguments, she delivered her verdict with the kind of finality that changes lives forever. On the charge of aggravated assault, guilty. On the charges of fraud and theft, guilty. Tyler's shoulders sagged. Linda made a sound like something breaking. "Mr. Brooks, your actions represent a profound betrayal of trust. You stole not just money, but futures.
You attacked a family member to cover your crimes. You showed no remorse until you were caught, and even then, you allowed others to lie for you. The sentence? 18 months in county jail, 5 years probation, full restitution to fraud victims, and a no-contact order protecting me for 2 years. Furthermore, Judge Hayes continued, the Bright Futures Foundation will be placed under state oversight pending a complete audit and restructuring. Linda ran after the bailiff as they led Tyler away, grabbing at her son like she could somehow hold him back from the consequences of his choices. Tyler didn't look at me as he passed, but I saw his face, finally understanding that charm and manipulation couldn't rewrite reality. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. I didn't stop for interviews, but one called out, "Zoe, any regrets?" I turned just for a second. No, I finally told the truth. Let everyone else figure out what to do with it. My phone buzzed that evening, an unknown number. "Hi, you don't know me. I was Tyler's girlfriend sophomore year. I wanted to thank you. What you did saved someone else too." I didn't reply, but I saved the message. Sophie Rivera found me packing up my things at the temporary shelter where I'd been staying during the trial. Linda had made it clear I wasn't welcome in her house, and Mom's apartment was too small for both of us. "There's something you should know," Sophie said. "Your aunt left a voicemail for the director. She's claiming you exaggerated everything, that you have mental health issues." I laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "She's still protecting him." "She doesn't understand this isn't just a courtroom anymore. This is bigger than her family's reputation." Sophie handed me a packet of letters. These came to the court from other scholarship recipients, other families affected by the fraud. I opened the first one, a mother thanking me for exposing the truth that had destroyed her daughter's college plans. A boy who'd given up on engineering school, now reapplying with legitimate scholarships. Families who'd blamed themselves for their children's failures, now understanding they'd been victims of theft. "There's something else," Sophie said. "A nonprofit advocacy group saw your case. They want to hire you to speak, to write, to help other families navigate fraud and abuse cases." I stared at the letters, at the evidence that my choice to speak up had mattered beyond my own family's destruction. "I was made for it," I said. 6 months later, I stood in a high school auditorium in Denver, looking out at 200 students who'd come to hear about nonprofit fraud and family abuse. I wore the same navy blazer, carried my father's watch, and told the truth in a voice that no longer shook. "Sometimes the people who claim to protect you are the ones you need protection from," I began. "Sometimes silence isn't strength. It's just fear dressed up as loyalty." I told them about discovering the theft, about Tyler's violence, about Linda's manipulation. But I didn't end with the trauma. I ended with transformation. I'm not the girl they raised me to be quiet for. I'm the woman I became in spite of them. Afterwards, a girl approached me, 17, shy, with bruises on her wrists that she thought her sleeves were hiding. "My uncle," she whispered, "he runs a youth program. Money's been going missing, and when I asked about it, I gave her Sophie Rivera's card and my own number. You don't have to handle this alone." Ethan Walker was in the audience that night. He'd gotten a replacement scholarship and was back in art school, his paintings now focused on themes of justice and recovery. We'd become friends, both of us understanding what it meant to have your future stolen and then fight to reclaim it. "You're different," he said afterward as we walked to our cars. "How?" "Stronger, not harder, just unbreakable." He was right. The girl who'd sorted through scholarship applications in Linda's office was gone. In her place was someone who understood that speaking truth, even when it hurts the people you love, is sometimes the most loving thing you can do. My phone rang. Mom. "How did it go?" "Good. Really good." "I'm proud of you, you know. Your father would be too." "I know." "Linda called again. She wants to reconcile. Says Tyler's been asking about you in his letters." I looked up at the stars, clear and cold in the Denver sky. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that some bridges burn for good reason, and that my daughter doesn't owe anyone forgiveness for doing the right thing. Tyler would be released in 8 months. Linda had lost the foundation and faced civil lawsuits from affected families. The family fractures would probably never heal completely. But Ethan was back in art school. 3 other students had received replacement scholarships. The new Bright Futures Foundation, under state oversight, was actually helping kids instead of helping Tyler pay gambling debts with futures that weren't his to sell. Sometimes the best revenge is living out loud in a world that begged you to stay quiet. And I was just getting started. 1 year later, I stood on a stage in Chicago, looking out at 300 faces that reminded me why silence kills and truth saves. The Conference on Nonprofit Accountability had drawn advocates from across the country: lawyers, social workers, fraud investigators, and survivors like me who'd learned that speaking up was the only way to protect others. "My name is Zoe Collins," I began, my voice carrying to the back of the auditorium without a tremor. And I used to believe that family loyalty meant keeping quiet when the people you love do terrible things. The presentation slides behind me showed statistics: how much money was stolen, how many students were affected, how many dreams were deferred, while Tyler paid off gambling debts with futures that weren't his to sell. The hardest part wasn't the broken arm. It wasn't the courtroom or the family fractures or the hate mail from relatives who thought I should have kept my mouth shut. The hardest part was realizing that my silence was a weapon being used against innocent people. In the front row, Sophie Rivera nodded encouragingly. Beside her sat Dr. Patricia Williams, the social worker who'd helped me navigate the aftermath of the trial. Next to her, Detective Murphy, who'd driven down from Colorado to hear me speak. Tyler Brooks was sentenced to 18 months for assault and fraud. He served 14 with good behavior. Linda Brooks lost control of the foundation and faced civil penalties totaling $67,000. The Bright Futures Foundation was restructured under state oversight and has since provided legitimate scholarships to 43 students. I clicked to the next slide, showing photos of scholarship recipients, real ones this time. Ethan Walker smiled from the corner, his art school acceptance letter framed beside his latest painting. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. The real victory isn't in the punishments or the restitution payments. It's in the voices that found courage to speak up because someone else went first. After my presentation, people approached with their own stories. A woman whose brother had embezzled from their church's youth program, a man whose sister used family money to fund her drug addiction while claiming it was for her mother's medical expenses, a teenager whose uncle had been stealing from her college fund for years. Each story was different, but the pattern was the same: family members choosing silence over justice, loyalty over protection, reputation over truth. "What you did matters," the teenager told me, tears in her eyes. "I've been scared to tell anyone about my uncle, but watching your speech, I know I have to." I gave her my card and Sophie's number. You don't have to do it alone. Later that evening, I sat in my hotel room reviewing emails from the nonprofit verification program I'd helped establish. We'd identified 7 fraudulent organizations in the past year, protecting hundreds of families from schemes similar to Tyler's. My phone buzzed with a text from Mason. "Watched the live stream. Dad would be proud. Mom cried through the whole thing." I smiled and typed back, "Good tears or bad tears?" "Good tears. She says you sound like him when you get passionate about protecting people." The comparison made my chest tight. Dad had spent his life advocating for workers' rights, fighting for people who didn't have the resources to fight for themselves. He died too young, too broke, but he'd never compromised his principles for comfort. Another text came in, this one from an unknown number. "Saw your speech online. I was one of Tyler's victims, got my replacement scholarship, and start college next month. Thank you for speaking up. Marcus." I stared at the message. Marcus? One of the fake names on Tyler's scholarship applications had been Marcus Chen. This was a real Marcus, a real person whose real dreams had been stolen and then restored because someone decided to tell the truth. I saved the message and scrolled through others like it. 47 messages from scholarship recipients, family members, and other survivors. People whose lives had been touched by the courage to speak up, when speaking up was hard.
My laptop chimed with an email from a documentary filmmaker in Los Angeles. Miss Collins, we're producing a film about institutional fraud and family corruption. Your case represents everything we're trying to expose: how families can become crime scenes when silence becomes currency. Would you be interested in participating? I closed the laptop without responding. Some stories needed to be told widely, and some needed to be lived quietly. I wasn't ready to decide which category mine belonged to. The hotel room was quiet, except for the hum of traffic 20 floors below. I pulled out my father's watch and held it up to the light, remembering the night he'd given it to me. "Time is the only thing you can't steal back," he'd said. "Once someone takes it from you, it's gone forever, so don't let anyone waste yours with their lies." Tyler had tried to steal time from dozens of students, years they could have spent in college instead of wondering why they weren't good enough. Linda had tried to steal time from me, moments I could have spent healing instead of being gaslit into believing I was crazy. But time also healed things that seemed permanently broken. The foundation was helping kids again. Ethan was painting again. I was speaking again, using my voice to protect people instead of to keep secrets. A year ago, I'd been the girl who organized scholarship applications in her aunt's office, someone who noticed details but was too polite to make waves. Tonight, I was someone who made waves on purpose, who understood that discomfort was often the price of justice. My phone rang. "Mom." "How did it go, sweetheart?" "Really well. Standing room only and lots of questions afterward." "Any word from Linda?" I sighed. "She sent another letter last week, wants to meet for coffee, says Tyler's doing better in his outpatient program." "What did you tell her?" I didn't respond. Some bridges burn for good reasons. "And Tyler?" "What about Tyler? How do you feel about him getting out early?" I thought about it. Tyler would be released next month, his sentence reduced for good behavior and participation in addiction counseling. He'd lost his law school prospects and faced years of probation, but he was young enough to rebuild if he wanted to. "I hope he learned something," I said finally. "But I'm not responsible for his redemption. I'm only responsible for making sure he couldn't hurt anyone else without consequences." "You sound tired." "I am tired. Good tired, though. The kind you get from work that matters." After we hung up, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not a response to the documentary request, but an entry in the memoir I'd been working on for months. The book deal had come through Sophie's Connections, a publisher who specialized in survivor stories and social justice narratives. The working title was The Loudest Room in the House, a memoir of family secrets and public truth. I'd written about the scholarship fraud, the assault, the trial, and everything that followed. But tonight I wanted to write about the future. Recovery isn't about forgetting the trauma. It's about transforming the trauma into something that serves others. It's about taking the worst thing that happened to you and making sure it becomes the reason the worst thing doesn't happen to someone else. I wrote about the verification program, about the speaking engagements, about the families who'd found courage to expose fraud and abuse because they'd seen someone else do it first. My cousin broke my arm because I threatened to expose his crimes. My aunt told me to stay silent because she valued his future over my safety. But a nurse called the police anyway, and that phone call changed everything. Not just for me, but for every person who needed to see that truth is stronger than family loyalty, that justice is more important than reputation. I wrote until dawn, until my fingers were tired and my heart was full. When I finally closed the laptop, the Chicago skyline was pink with sunrise, and I felt something I'd been building toward for months. Peace. Not the peace of forgetting or forgiving or moving on. The peace of knowing that when faced with a choice between comfort and courage, I'd chosen courage. The peace of understanding that my father's watch wasn't just keeping time, it was keeping promises.
The promise to never let anyone waste my time with their lies. The promise to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. The promise to be the woman I became in spite of the people who tried to silence me. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Flight to Portland in 6 hours for another conference, another chance to tell the truth to people who needed to hear it. I showered, packed, and checked out of the hotel. In the lobby, a young woman approached me nervously. "Excuse me, are you Zoe Collins?" "I am." "I was at your speech yesterday. I wanted to thank you." Her voice was shaky but determined. "My stepfather has been stealing from my college fund for years. After hearing you talk, I realize I can't keep protecting him just because he's family." I handed her my card. "What's your name?" "Sarah." "Sarah, what you're about to do is going to be hard. But you're not doing it to hurt your stepfather. You're doing it to protect your future and probably other people's futures too." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Will it get easier?"
I thought about the question, about the year of legal battles and family fractures and learning to sleep without nightmares. "It gets different," I said. "And different can be better, if you're brave enough to see it through." As my plane lifted off from Chicago, I looked down at the city sprawling below and thought about all the voices finding courage in conference rooms and living rooms and courtrooms across the country. People deciding that truth was worth the trouble it caused, that justice was worth the discomfort it brought. My story was far from over. There were more speeches to give, more families to help, more silence to break. But for the first time since I'd found those falsified scholarship applications in Linda's office, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was ready for it. The plane climbed higher, carrying me toward the next chapter of a life lived out loud in a world that had tried to teach me to whisper. But I'd learned something important in that hotel room in Chicago, something that would carry me through whatever came next. Some voices are meant to be heard, and mine was just getting started. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.